I'm Melissa Case from Hat to Hem, and today we are celebrating Samantha's birthday. Yes, she has a birthday. Like all of the original American Girl dolls, Samantha's birthday is in the spring. With the original books, the books followed a certain pattern, and the fourth book was always the birthday book, and it was always a springtime story. Samantha's birthday is actually May 26th, and that is why I am making her birthday dress now. I'm actually really excited for this one. As much as I always liked her cranberry dress, her birthday dress has a special place in my heart. Her birthday spread was my absolute favorite playset in the entire American Girl catalog. Her birthday dress is probably actually my second favorite Samantha dress, second only to her Talent Show dress. I think my favorite part of it was always that Lacy Pinafore. It just always felt so elegant. And I also think that her rosebud circlet stood out, which in the story actually originally belonged to her late mother, so there's a little bit of extra sentiment to it. These dolls actually have some pretty intense backstories. Anyway, I'm going to be making 3 different things for her outfit. I'm going to be making her rose pink and white peppermint dress, as well as her Lacy Pinafore and her rosebud circlet. Now what's extra interesting about this is that there's actually more than one version of this dress. That's because the second edition of these books actually had different set of illustrations. Now the first set of illustrations were by Robert Grace and Nancy Niles. Now this version of Samantha's Pinafore dress had less elaborate lace on the straps, but she did have a lace ruffle going along the bottom of the pinafore. She also had a pink ruffle going along the bottom of her sleeves. Now I do not have white shoes, so the bottom part of this outfit is going to be a little different than the actual books, but oh well. I can't do anything about this short notice, so I'm not going to worry about it. The second set of illustrations were by Dan Andreasen. So even though I was originally exposed to the original illustrations first, these are my favorite, but it's all down to personal preference. Now the top of this pinafore is slightly fancier, but it does not have the ruffle along the bottom. Also, instead of there being a pink ruffle at the bottom of the sleeve, it's a white ruffle. Now interestingly enough, the dress in the catalog is actually closer to the second set of illustrations. It does not have a ruffle at the bottom of the pinafore, and the little ruffle along the sleeve is actually done in white lace. Now the one that's originally in the catalog is also wearing black shoes, so I think mine wearing black shoes is gonna be fine. Or at least that's what I'm gonna tell myself. But, funny enough, there's actually one more version of this dress, and it was in the paper doll set. In the paper doll set, her dress does not have any ruffle at the bottom of the sleeves, and the pinafore is actually made of opaque lace on the straps, which was probably just easier to illustrate. And then the bottom ruffle actually looks like it's made out of opaque eyelet lace with a strip of beading lace threaded with a pink ribbon at the top. Now which version am I going to make? I don't know. I feel like it's safe to assume that I'm going to stick close to the dress, but I'm not 100% sure how I want the pinafore to go. So I will be just as surprised as everyone else. I can't believe I'm going to have this dress. Okay. So now let me show you the pattern and the fabric. So here is the dress pattern I used. I got my copy off of eBay, but this is also available for free online, and I will include a link in my description. Now I already talked about this pattern in my Samantha Surprise Cranberry dress video. Just wanted to show you right here. Here she is wearing her Lacy Pinafore dress. And then here are the pattern instructions. So we have a brief description as well as a picture of her. And then we have the pattern layout, the materials, and then it says you can either use ribbon rosebuds or you can make your own, which would be later in the instructions. So as you can see, it's going to be 13 steps to make the dress, 7 steps to make the pinafore, 4 steps to make the circlet, and then 9 steps to make the rosebuds if that's the route I decide to go in. So just like last time, I'm going to make a copy of the pattern and then just cut that out. That way I'm able to keep this all in one piece and it's relatively preserved, which is important to me since this pattern is older than I am. As for fabrics, I have this nice striped taffeta. As you can see, the stripes are probably a little bit more red than pink, but I'm sure it's fine. They'll fade over time, and it's not like I'm trying to sell this as one of the originals. I'm not. This is just for fun. And then I also have this cotton voile, which is nice and thin. And you can see when I put it over the stripes, it'll peek out just a little bit, just like in the original. I do not have the trims to show off because I haven't really picked those out yet. I'm going to see what I have on hand and see if I can avoid running to the store. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I'm going to try. Plus, I'm still not sure if I'm going to have a ruffle at the bottom of this or if I'm going to go more like the original. We'll see. It's going to depend on time. I have rather busy week coming up between work and baby care and all that good stuff, so we'll see how this goes. Speaking of things I have to do, I have to go and cook dinner now, so I will catch up with you in a few hours. I typically trace my patterns, but copying it really saved a lot of time. Plus, even though Samantha's size isn't going to change, I still didn't feel right cutting into a pattern that was printed in 1990. Once I had all of the Pinafore pieces cut out, I clipped them together and put them to the side until I was ready to cut out the cotton fabric. After giving the taffeta a quick press, I cut out the skirt of the dress. Since it's just a rectangle, I skipped making a pattern piece for it, instead opting to just measure a rectangle with my clear ruler. Once that was done, I cut out the rest of the pieces, including the front and back of the bodice, the neckband, the sleeves, and the sleeve bands. The first step is to sew the front and the back panels together at the shoulder seam. The seams were pressed flat, then open, then towards the back, then from the correct side. It might seem like overkill, but pressing your seams can make such a difference to the finished product. I finished the raw edge with my serger. While that isn't accurate to 1905, it is accurate to how Pleasant Company finished their edges. The collar was then attached, right sides together, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I pressed the raw edge under by 1/4 inch, folded it over, and slip stitched it down before pressing the mostly finished collar. Next, I ran a row of gathering stitches along the top and bottom of the sleeves. I was too lazy to mark where the stitches should begin and end, opting to just hold the pattern against the sleeve. Whatever, it worked. I marked the center of both the bottom of the sleeve and sleeve band and pinned them together. Whenever I gather fabric down to match a different piece of fabric, I always match the ends, centers, and sometimes quarters as a quick way to evenly distribute the gathers. There are more painstaking ways to do this, but this does the job reasonably well if you're short on time, which I almost always am. Once the gathers were sewn down, I encased them in the sleeve band and secured it by stitching in the ditch. I added a strip of lace by stitching it to the underside of the sleeve band. The sleeve was then gathered up to fit the armhole and attached. After serging the armhole seam, the sides of the bodice and the sleeve seam were sewn up in a single line of stitching. That technique is just so satisfying to me. The last inch or so was left open to make getting it on and off a little easier. The gap will be fastened with Velcro. The nearly finished bodice was then put aside so I can focus on the skirt. The bottom edge was serged along with the side edges. The side edges were then stitched together with an opening at the top that, again, will make getting it on and off a lot easier. The seam was pressed flat, then open before the bottom edge was pressed up to make the hem. I usually save the hem for last, but this is for a doll, so custom hemming feels unnecessary. After running the gathering stitches at the top, the skirt was gathered to the bodice in my usual way. If you made it this far into the video, let me know by telling me about your favorite doll outfit or childhood playset in the comments. I truly love to hear about them. All that was left was to serge the waist seam and add Velcro to the back. Once the Pinafore pieces were cut out, I took the 2 sash pieces over to my ironing board. I hemmed one edge, keeping it pretty narrow. Once it was stitched down, I folded one end over to make a little triangle and hemmed the remaining long edge. Using the pattern as a guide, I marked the tucks with pins, color-coding the pins that needed to match up. I stuck the end of the sash into the waistband piece, which had been folded in half. Once everything was stitched together, the waistband was flipped right side out with the sash securely attached. Next, I had a choice to make. I originally was going to make the straps out of this piece of lace, but I was worried it just wasn't full enough. I had this second piece of lace left over from my Samantha surprise dress and my upcoming half-scale ball gown project. Despite being worried it might be too much, I decided to take a chance on it. I figured it was better to try something that might work instead of going with something that I knew I would be unhappy with. I folded the lace so one edge was half an inch wider than the other. I tried gathering the lace on my machine, but I just didn't like how little control I had over the gather. Instead, I ran gathering stitches 2 inches away from the widest edge and trimmed away the rest. I did my usual gathering trick with colored pins, and I was very happy with the result. Once one side of the strap was sewn to the ruffle, I pressed the other side under 1/4 inch before folding the entire strap over to encase the raw edge of the ruffle. I think I chose the right lace. The front of the pinafore has 2 small tucks, which I was able to sew using the pattern as a guide. I backed the front piece with a bit of lace, positioning it so the scallop peeked over the top. Then the straps were top stitched on either side. I matched the center front with the center of the sash and clipped the other end of the straps to where it was marked on the pattern. Everything was stitched down, and it was time to work on the bottom of the pinafore. I opted against doing a ruffle, so I did a 1-inch hem along the bottom and a 1/4 inch hem up the sides. I ran 2 rows of gathering stitches along the top. I did 2 rows to give myself a little more control over the gathers. Since this was close to the end of the project, I could afford to take a little more time to stroke the gathers with a pin and make sure they were all laying neatly. The front of the waistband was machine stitched to the bottom of the pinafore, and I attached the back of the waistband by hand. With the pinafore done, all that was left was the circlet. I used pre-made roselets rather than wasted evening making my own. I measured out a 31.5 inch long piece of ribbon, which was then cut in half, and each half was tied into a bow. The bows were tacked onto a second ribbon, and then the 8 roselets were evenly spaced between the bows. I can't believe I have this outfit now. It feels so surreal to have this. I can't tell you how many hours I spent looking at this dress in the catalog. To have my own version that I made myself, it just feels so amazing. I love this outfit, especially the pinafore. I'm really glad that I took the time to work on this. If you're not going to occasionally treat yourself to something you really wanted as a child, then what's the point of growing up, right? Anyway, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a like, and don't forget to tell me about your favorite doll outfit or playset in the comments. Thank you to my patrons on Patreon who cheered me on and didn't judge me for making this despite having 2 other projects I'm working on. I will see you next time with a new video. Bye!